So before we kick off, I should introduce myself. I'm Rick Neitzel. I'm an associate professor in environmental health sciences here at the University of Michigan. I also, before we get started, want to note that this is being live streamed. So we've got our audience in the room here, but I want to welcome those of you who are dialed in from various places around the world. And before we really get started with the program, I want to make a couple of thank you announcements here. So one, I absolutely want to extend our sincere thanks to our funders. So the majority of the funding for this event and the larger e-waste recycling project that this is a part of has come from the Graham Sustainability Institute. We've also had some funding for this particular event from the School of Public Health, from the African Studies Center, from the Center for Southeast Asian Studies, and from the International Institute here at the University of Michigan. So again, thank you to our funders. This wouldn't have been possible without them. I also want to thank our partners. So we're going to hear from a variety of people today from universities and organizations all around the world. So Mei Fa Luang University in Thailand, the University of Chile, the University of Santiago of Chile, Plataforma RELAC, which is an organization we'll learn more about later, and the University of Ghana. And then finally, before we move on, I want to call out special thanks to Stephanie Saylor, who is probably not even in the room right now, to get her recognition. So Stephanie has been absolutely instrumental in getting the logistics together for this workshop and actually helping it get off the ground. So she has been just a tremendous resource, and probably most of you have run into her already. So with that, I'd like to just do a quick orientation as to where we are. In case you don't know, we are here on a totally uninteresting backwater of the galaxy here, zooming in for a little higher resolution. So you're sitting right here in the Rackham Amphitheater. Breakfast was right behind us, of course, in the assembly hall. We're all here right now in the amphitheater. During lunch, we will have posters down in the East Conference Room, which is directly out the door to your right. Also during lunch and during the breaks, we're going to have coffee downstairs, actually in the Earl Lewis Room, which is one floor down, also on the east side of the building. It's going to be a long day. Some of you may need the restroom. So the men's room is out the door to the right here, and the women's restroom is out the door to the left. So I think that's all we have in terms of orientation. So just to give you a quick overview of what we have in store for you today. So the opening session here, we wanted to really give you an impression of what informal e-waste recycling looks like around the world. So I'm going to give, of course, some introductory remarks here. We're going to have short presentations by two doctoral students, Kristen Carlson and Aubrey Langeland, who are going to talk about the importance of diversity and inclusivity in research on e-waste or other topics, and also about environmental justice considerations. Then we're going to have a presentation on e-waste recycling in the informal sector in Chile, followed by a presentation looking at informal e-waste recycling in Ghana. And finally, we'll have a presentation on informal e-waste recycling in Thailand. So that's going to be our jam-packed opening session here. The good news is that at that point, we'll have lunch. So lunch is on your own from 11:35 to 1 p.m. However, while you need to go out and get your lunch, there will be coffee here, again, down in the Earl Lewis Room, so feel free to avail yourself of that. And once you've got a cup of coffee in hand, again, I would encourage you to go. We have more than a dozen posters down the hall in the East Conference Room. So one thing that I would like to ask you to consider to do right from the outset here, it turns out we don't actually know that much about consumer perspectives on e-waste recycling. Are people aware that this is an issue, that this is going on? Do people understand how to get products recycled in the most environmentally and health sustainable fashion? And so what I'd love to have you do, if any of you have a QR reader on your code, you can scan that QR code. That's going to take you straight to a short survey. So we would love to have your participation in that survey, again, to get a better sense of what consumers know about the impacts and issues around e-waste recycling. I had never heard of a QR code before this conference. I'm a little more old school, so for those of you who are like me, there's also a web link here. We'll have that up during all the breaks too. The survey should take you about 5 minutes to do. It's quite short, and again, that's going to give us some very useful information about how might we reach out to consumers. Because of course, as we think about some of the impacts and problems with e-waste, unfortunately, we as consumers are a critical part of the problem, and hopefully a critical part of the solution. So once we're done with lunch, we're all convened back here. We have, again, an international panel. We're going to talk about more sustainability and engineering related topics. So we'll have a talk about engineering issues specific to e-waste. We're going to talk about sustainability and life cycle assessment with regards to e-waste recycling. I'm going to be back up in front of you to talk about some of the occupational and public health hazards of e-waste. We'll also hear from the perspective of the worker from a workshop we held in Chile. What are the workers' perspectives and perceptions of e-waste? And then we'll have a time for hopefully a quite healthy panel discussion. From 2:30 to 3, we'll again have some coffee down in the Earl Lewis room, and the posters will still be out. And then we'll move into our final session of the day, so our last expert panel that's focused more on policy and management of e-waste recycling. So we're actually going to get a perspective from the United Nations on informal e-waste recycling. We're also going to have a critically important business perspective. We're going to talk about socio-technical issues and policy issues, both in Chile and in Thailand. And then once again, we'll have a healthy panel discussion. We'll wrap up at about 4:50, and I'll leave you a few minutes then to, again, hopefully complete that survey.